Welcome everybody to Get Real. How about that? I love that. Get Real with Morton. And I suppose here we are with a real person. And that is Big Jim. So obviously Real Talk, we're here to talk about real subjects and give information to our clients, in particular our landlords, of which we have a lot.
Sure do.
So we sure do. 3,500 landlords across the place. So that's quite a lot of people. And so what we're here to do is to talk about some of the stuff that we know makes a difference to landlords. But I suppose the first thing, let's talk about you, Jim.
I'm good at that.
Yeah. I mean, you've been at Morton for a long time.
Sure have. Yeah. So, geez, what is it? 24 years.
24 years.
Yeah, in May.
God, that's amazing.
I started as a property manager.
Yep.
With sort of previous 8-9 years experience.
Yep.
And I guess from there, I've done the property management, I've done the new business, and obviously now sales and being a part of the business in a few ways. But I guess it's given me a holistic view on, I guess, the areas, the business, and just the experience.
Like right now, it's a bit of a contentious time to be a landlord, just in that a lot of talk about the housing crisis, not having enough supply. A little bit down on landlords, I sort of feel like out in the press, a lot of focus on tenants and obviously, cost of living pressures, rents have gone up. Yep. But there is a lot of, I don't know whether the landlords have got a good enough voice because they sort of get demonized a little bit. What's your view on that?
I agree. I think where you've got a landlord, that's basically worked really hard, probably made a lot of sacrifices or compromised in things that other people weren't doing in order to, save money in a world that's not easy to do so at the moment. Yeah. Particularly if you're looking to get 20%, avoid mortgage insurance. So you're looking to get ahead in life, or certainly create an nest egg for later in life.
I know. We sort of have a strong belief about that. With a lot of landlords, who feel like they've worked hard to take a decision for their future. Yep. So therefore they deserve respect for doing that. And that gets lost a little bit, I think, in this current housing crisis.
I agree. They sort of portrayed, in my opinion, like they're like King Tut sitting up there with
Lord of all.
Money all around them.
But that's actually not the truth.
No, and they've got the mortgage pressure and everything else with cost of living. So I just think that I think you're right, and our advice, or certainly my experience or my opinion, is property is still the best long-term investment. For a capital growth point of view. Yeah. But from between here and that. Your mortgage is going up. You've got, if it's an apartment, you've got outgoings. You've got a lot of financial commitments. You've got vacancies. You've got, putting money into your property. Yeah. So I agree. I think that it's not just on the poor tenant.
Last year, we've seen, massive increases in rents, like quite extraordinary pressure on rents. But we've also had this extraordinary pressure on mortgage interest rates going up, and have landlords generally ended up in a better position?
You're right. There's so many layers to it, and you're right. We've got this cost of living, and we've had the housing shortage, which has probably propped us up to some extent. Yeah, no, so it's hard to get a sort of a real sort of read on its impact. Again, coming back to your point with the media demonising the landlord, you're correct in that. Housing shortage, it's a demand-supply thing, always will be, or that'll never change. So, putting it simply, too many people needing roof over their heads, not enough stock, prices go up. Yeah, that's not the landlord's fault. It's just I
suppose it's allowing a landlord to get out. I reckon we've seen that amongst our clients where they're like, the cash flow implications of this, I just don't want it anymore. So they're able to get out at a reasonable price. Whereas if it'd gone the other way, we'd be in a greater world of pain.
Yeah. Look, I just think that if you look at, there is a housing shortage again. We're going to see what's going to happen from that. But I guess wage growth doesn't equal inflation, doesn't equal the mortgage, that sort of thing. Taxes all-time high. But we could sit here and chat about that all day.
I know. And neither of us are probably got the skills to talk about that. But just coming back to the actual properties themselves, because obviously there are ways that you can be a good landlord, and there's certain sort of basics, I suppose, in terms of how you look after the property. So, and that obviously has an impact on sale as well. So what's your view on that?
Yeah, so a couple of points I'd make. firstly, yeah, our job is to maximise a client's, return. But that isn't just about, I can get you the most rent. Like, I think it's important and coming back, that's where it works with, I guess I've been lucky enough to be with a business for a long time. So you are building relationships, you're getting very experienced, you know your clients, I guess, if they know you, you know them, you've got trust, then you can lead them through these sorts of things, basically a lot easier, right? Because they believe in you and you've worked with them.
And I suppose that helps when it comes to things like maintenance, because no one ever wants to maintain anything, because not that, actually that's a very bit of a broad sweep, but it involves spending money. And particularly, I would say in the last couple of years, landlords have definitely been under that pressure, and they don't necessarily want to, like, having to spend money disappoints them. But the trick is spend the money, because keeping your tenant happy is very important.
I totally agree. As you say, like, you can spend money, you could get a slightly higher rent. But if you've got a good tenant that's going to stay long term, there's that reciprocation or mutual respect, even when there's a middleman such as us, then you're more likely to have a tenant who's not going to be on the phone every 5 minutes or sending you threatening emails, wanting...
It's interesting, the looked after, because
no
again...
vacancy.
But I mean, even the looked after thing, if someone's... it amazes me how, like, this sounds like a really old school thing to say, how many people don't know how to clean things. When someone takes a 12-month lease and they're not cleaning it every week, which you sort of expect most people would do, but they don't. And then that sort of level of grime that builds up, that always has an impact, doesn't it? Like, it always, when you see the property in the beginning, then you see it at the end, and we know there's fair wear and tear and all that, but it's hard to go back to that state before. So having a tenant that knows how to do that is actually adds value.
It's a benefit, and I agree. And experience shows me that where you've got people that, always exception to the rule, but if you've got somebody that's there 12 months or longer, they tend to be the sort of person that is more settled in life, employment, your property, their property, and they're the ones going to treat it like their home.
That's it. So when they do that, then they're going that extra step to clean the grime out of the laundry.
Well, it's not someone else's property, it is their home. They've got a bit of, proud about.
It's funny how we were talking to the young leasing consultants, and obviously we have all this technology to check everything. So more and more of that now, but it's amazing how it comes back to, how did you feel about the person when they came in? Were they on time? Did they have all their information together? Were they respectful? You can actually tell a lot from that person, and that's becoming an increasingly important part about how you make sure you've checked. Well, it's always been important how you select that tenant, but there's a good example of so much technology, but it comes down to a person-to-person judgment. So you've got to be right on top of that tenant selection. But isn't that funny, like a bit of old school stuff coming into a new school way? But it's like we've had a whole discussion about how we train our young people to be able to do that sort of judgment, what to look for. And again, even using the word judgment's not fashionable anymore. But it's important when it comes to selecting a tenant for the property, because if you get it wrong, there's a world of pain.
Giving possession of the wrong person.
But coming back to the actual physical apartment, because they do get wear and tear in terms of over the time. People not cleaning things properly or whatever, that does have an impact. So what would be your advice to landlords, on that side of things? Is it worth getting your grouting freshened up? That type of stuff.
Absolutely. Sure is. And it's one of those sort of simple values, is that if you're presenting something that is welcoming and nice to live in, it's more likely you're going to get a tenant of good quality that appreciates it and will look 100%. After the property. Look, as you said, we're always going to get wear and tear. I guess it's part of our job as the managing agent, but also theirs to have a budget in place, right? Where that's part of our job with regards to doing routine inspections. It's our job to recommend that, look, it's okay at the moment, but next time round it may be necessary. We suggest giving a new lick of paint carpet. But these things are relatively cheap. In that it's going to present better. It's going to present better online. You're going to get a tenant probably a better quality at a better rent in less time. These are all things that actually impact on your reconciliation come tax time. As to how long it's set vacant, how much rent you got.
So the better presented it is, or the better condition it is from a rental point of view, stands you out not only from the crowd, but it also means that the tenant who values that are the ones that are attracted to your property, and that's where you get the long-term person who's wanting to make it their home and thus the property isn't as ground down as quickly. You can also set greater expectations, I think, with tenants. If you've made a really good effort as a landlord to present something as well as you can because you're thinking about the tenant, then, you know, there's a whole set of expectations we set.
Like I actually think now, and rightfully so, we need to be seen as an advisor, maybe not a financial advisor, but we need to know, I think it's good having people that we have that understand property, what works, what attracts. But I think that, it is our job, and this is something I know we try and nurture in our up-and-comers, our stars, if you like, is that we're the ones leading our clients. Yeah. Right? That's what they've got us for. Yeah. So don't be afraid to, basically voice or articulate the advice you want to give, why you're offering that advice, and why we feel it is a benefit to.
And I suppose what we're sort of trying to say here to our clients is listen to that advice. Yep. How often would you say, so say for example for an apartment, like new paint, new carpet, how often do you think an owner should be prepared for that? Because that when you talked about budgeting and being prepared, like every 10 years, like
8 to 10 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on, I guess, property, but it shouldn't be any, it shouldn't be any less than that for sure.
Yeah. And the lick of paint always makes a big difference because that can be done very quickly too, particularly with the, lovely warm shade of beige.
You're right, and look, we're pretty good at that. Again, we've got really good trades. They're trusted, they're reliable. If there's problems, they jump to it. But there can be very little downtime, and it's just fresh and again, differentiating.
Yeah, it is actually two different things because obviously when you're renovating for sale, potentially, you're going to zoosh it up a bit because it's a short-term thing and you're trying to create the biggest emotional impact. When you're doing it for rent, you're trying to do the same thing, but you're also wanting it to last for a long period of time. So what's your advice to landlords about doing that? Should you get sometimes, those harder wearing carpets that go for longer, but they don't look they don't give that same plush feel as 100% wool.
Yeah. So, and again, it can come down to the value of the property, what sort of rental we're talking about. But in most cases, you're correct. Like, you're not going to go 100% wool or too plushy. Yeah. But you don't want to go cheap and nasty either. No. That's all no good underfoot. No. So it's a happy medium, right? It's a balance. But like you can do simple things like that. Carpet, lick of paint. The existing oyster fittings you can take down, give them a clean, put some high wattage globes in.
It's even like doing a new shower screen. That's always a good one.
Correct. Just little things. A clean grout, which can freshen something up significantly. Yeah. But again, I think the benefit of having a middleman such as ourselves, and sorry about the plug, ladies and gentlemen.
It's all very well to have the budget and the plan and all that sort of stuff. You also need to have the micro part of that managed appropriately so that you are getting the best value, because as we both know too, the cheapest doesn't always necessarily mean the best, and sometimes landlords will favour the cheapest because they want to save the money, but there's another outcome that comes, the job's not done properly, or the tenant's not respected. That's another. That's the end of our first episode of Get Real with Morton.